Hey, Dimwits! Yeah, Congress, that means you. Every single one of you even considering throwing in your yes vote on a Syrian strike for the prancing pansy puppet in the White House. Yeah, you know who you are, and so do we. So here we go again. We the people, seeing something and saying something. Before we get started with our collective statement, though, let's read some words from some intelligent human beings. Obviously, since any connection between intelligence and you people would be an oxymoron a chihuahua couldn't miss, it goes without saying the following people are not elected leaders, but ordinary common sense type Americans. First up, we have Doug Giles, who published an article earlier today. The Pelosi Doctrine. We have to enter Syria's civil war to find out what's in it. Mr. Giles says, you know, I wouldn't have a hard time believing that the USA needs to blow into Syria and rain hellfire down upon Assad and his ilk, except for the following. One, it's their problem. Two, the rebels we'd now be supporting look like a bubble off level. Three, the folks who are selling us this quagmire make Pinocchio look like Moses, and their foreign policies have been as successful as Crystal Pepsi. Four, aren't we a bit late? Let's break the aforementioned down, shall we? Point number one. Aside from international law, which doesn't apply to the Syria scenario, and Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, and an acknowledgement of the War Powers Resolution from a pragmatic perspective, shouldn't we let them sort their own business out? Geez, people, we can't even fix Detroit. What the heck are we going to offer Damascus? Earth to Washingtonian dipsticks. Our house first, please. Yes, let's take care of our business for, the next millennium, and then look around the world for some fixer-uppers, okay? Personally, I'm sick of us rushing off to some suckistan at the expense of our troops' lives and billions of dollars from our broke-ass nation to fix folks who wish to remain stuck in the Stone Age. Point number two, the creepy rebels. These freedom fighters look certifiable to moi. They look like terrorists. They sure don't look or act like disgruntled gymnasts pining for democracy, especially that rebel from this summer's video who killed one of Assad's boys and then cut his heart out and ate it. That's cuckoo where I come from. No air support for you. Look, if BHO and Lurch want us to believe the good rebel freedom fighter horse hockey, then they need to shut down YouTube for a while, because vids like the one the New York Times ran this week of these lovelies executing Syrian soldiers while screaming, "Ollie, Ollie, income free," or whatever it is they yell, make folks with a semi-decent BS detector think we've been helping replace something with nothing or worse. If I was president, I wouldn't provide them with air support or a pellet rifle, but rather dump bales of high THC ganja and Yanni CDs in an attempt to get them all to chill out. Point number three. Obama, Kerry, and McCain want us to trust them that injecting the U.S. into Syria's civil war is the right thing to do? Hey, Kukla, Fran, and Ollie, why don't you ask a cop how smart it is to insert oneself into a domestic dispute? This has got bad idea written all over it. This sounds similar to what my redneck cousin Slappy said when he tried to ride a blade on the wind turbine in West Texas. Hey, y'all, watch this. Plus, when did Kerry become the hawkish warmonger? Didn't he caterwaul about U.S. involvement in another civil war a few decades ago? Yes, I believe that he did. In all fairness to Senor Kerry, maybe he's evolved. Maybe he was against involvement in another civil war before he was for it. Maybe his use of Teresa's Botox has short-circuited his synapses. Maybe he didn't know war could be so cool until Obama started it. Who knows? Only John and God know. Furthermore, a lot of folks aren't too stoked on following your lead in Syria, Mr. President, because your recent brain farts in the Middle East have left Libya and Egypt as a hotbed for Islamic lunatics that really hate our guts. And that's not just this right-wing zealot's thoughts. It's also Colbert's, Stewart's, and Kucinich's. You know you're done as a leftist when Dennis and HuffPo go sideways on you. Indeed, the nation is not down with your plan to kill more Syrians, to send them a message not to kill Syrians. And don't bother with the dead children diatribe because, as Colbert said, if you truly gave a crap about the plight of the kiddies, you'd invade Chicago, Planned Parenthood, and your own White House. And finally, aren't we a little late to their war? It's been cranking in earnest for the last 24 months. Aren't the true freedom fighters pretty much dead already? Shouldn't we have stepped up to the plate, say, before 100,000 people were killed and the Islamic lunatics showed up? I have to agree with this author. Now the following words are from Herman Woody Hughes, Ph.D., Captain, United States Navy, retired, Professor Emeritus, Pepperdine University, on the Benghazi incident, which we the people now know, without a doubt, is inextricably linked to the Syrian crisis. In fact, it's clear to us, even though you are still trying to help the White House mafia cover it up, that the arming of al-Qaeda and the Muslim Brotherhood through Libya and Turkey led directly to this international dog and pony show. Captain Hughes has some pretty important words to share. Quote, "Here is my story. A week out, the embassy in Tripoli began receiving multiple tips about an al-Qaeda cell in the area planning an attack on 9/11 in response to the killing of bin Laden. For the next several days, the State Department and White House were asked for a security force and were denied at least 6 times. Ambassador Stevens and his team were given the all-clear that the consulate in Benghazi was safe and there was no need for a security force other than his 3 personal guards, one being my cousin, and a few Libyans who were not armed. Then the attack and murders occurred. Immediately, the White House claimed it was a protest gone bad over a YouTube video. Obama made a quick speech in the Rose Garden on September 12th before catching a plane to Vegas to campaign. He made a generic statement at the end of his speech after placing the blame on an overheated protest over the video. He said, 'No act of terror will shake the resolve of America.' Later that day and over the next 2 days, the liberal media began saying Ambassador Stevens and the other 3 men died of smoke inhalation. This was not the case. Out of respect for my cousin, I'm not going to be specific about his murder. However, Ambassador Stevens was brutally murdered. His genitals were cut off, he was sodomized and beaten, and cut and stabbed and burned. He was dragged through the streets and left for dead. This is eyewitness testimony of a local doctor who found the ambassador in a ditch and tried to save his life. He had no idea who he was. The other 3 men, including my cousin, met similar fates, and deaths due to smoke inhalation is 100% fabricated lie. The next week, I drove my aunt and uncle and 2 others to D.C. to receive his body. We met with Hillary, Panetta, and Susan Rice, all of whom apologized and said it was a protest gone bad over a video and exited the area. Next, Obama entered with the same story and didn't apologize and wasn't sympathetic. My aunt cried to this man, and all he did was hand her flowers and walk away. I tried to get his attention, but didn't. I got upset and yelled liar to him, and he kept walking. Then a Secret Service agent grabbed my arm and led me to a room where I was held till the proceedings were over. America, I saw firsthand how cold this man is, what kind of liar he is. Most of you haven't a clue about this tyrant, and yet you support him. and act like every word he says is gospel. These murders and the Fast and Furious cover-ups make Watergate look like a kid who told his BFF's secret to the class. We must stop this man, and please pass this story along. God bless America. This next story many Americans don't know but should. I guess they will after today, huh? American Valor, Benghazi in Libya. The stunning part of this story is that Tyrone Woods and Glenn Doherty killed 60 of the attacking force. Once the compound was overrun, the attackers were incensed to discover that just 2 men had inflicted so much death and destruction. The news had been full of the attacks on our embassies throughout the Muslim world, and in particular, the deaths of Ambassador Chris Stevens and 3 others in Benghazi, Libya. However, there's a little-known story of incredible bravery, heroics, and courage that should be the top story. So what actually happened at the U.S. Embassy in Libya? We are learning more about this every day. Ambassador Stevens and Foreign Service Officer Sean Smith, along with administrative staff, were working out of temporary quarters due to the fact that in the spring of 2011, during the so-called Arab Spring, the United States cut ties with then-President Muammar Gaddafi. Our embassy was looted and ransacked, causing it to be unusable. It is still in a state of disrepair. Security for embassies and their personnel is to be provided by the host nation. Since Libya has gone through a civil war of sorts in the last 18 months, the current government is very unstable and therefore unreliable. A well-organized attack by radical Muslims was planned specifically targeting the temporary U.S. Embassy building. The Libyan security force that was in place to protect our people deserted their post or joined the attacking force. Either way, our people were in a real fix, and it should be noted that Ambassador Stevens had mentioned on more than one occasion to Secretary of State Hillary Clinton that he was quite concerned for his personal safety and the welfare of his people. It is thought that Ambassador Stevens was on a hit list. A short distance from the American compound, 2 Americans were sleeping. They were in Libya as independent contractors working an assignment totally unrelated to our embassy. They also happened to be former Navy SEALs. When they heard the noise coming from the attack on our embassy, as you would expect from highly trained warriors, they ran to the fight. Apparently, they had no weapons, but seeing the Libyan guards dropping their guns in their haste in fleeing the scene, Tyrone Woods and Glenn Doherty snatched up several of those discarded weapons and prepared to defend the American compound. Not knowing exactly what was taking place, the 2 SEALs set up a defensive perimeter. Unfortunately, Ambassador Stevens was already gravely injured, and Foreign Service Officer Sean Smith was dead. However, due to their quick action and suppressive fire, 20 administrative personnel in the embassy were able to escape safely. Eventually, these 2 courageous men were overwhelmed by the sheer numbers brought against them, an enemy force numbering between 100 and 200 attackers, which came in 2 waves. But the stunning part of the story is that Tyrone Woods and Glenn Doherty killed 60 of the attacking force. Once the compound was overrun, the attackers were incensed to discover just 2 men had inflicted so much death and destruction. As it became apparent to these selfless heroes, they were definitely going to lose their lives unless some reinforcements showed up in a hurry. As we now know, that was not to be. I'm fairly certain they knew they were going to die in this gunfight, but not before they took a whole lot of bad guys with them. Consider these tenets of the Navy SEAL Code. 1. Loyalty to country, team, and teammate. 2. Serve with honor and integrity on and off the battlefield. 3. Ready to lead, ready to follow, never quit. 4. Take responsibility for your actions and the actions of your teammates. 5. Excel as warriors through discipline and innovation. 6. Train for war, fight to win, defeat our nation's enemies. And 7. Earn your trident every day. Thank you, Tyrone and Glenn, to the very last breath. You both lived up to the SEAL Code. You served all of us well. You were courageous in the face of certain death. And Tyrone, even though you never got to hold your newborn son, He will grow up knowing the character and quality of his father, a man among men who sacrificed himself defending others. Dr. Charles R. Roots, senior pastor, former staff sergeant, United States Marine Corps captain, U.S. Navy chaplain, retired. This information should be passed on and on. No true American would object to receiving this more than once, so pass it on. Let us never forget the Hillary Clinton comment, "What difference does it make?" And she wants to be our next president. Well, the beauty of the Second Amendment is that it will not be needed until they try to take it. Thomas Jefferson. Now let's get down to the nitty-gritty on this asinine plan to strike Syria and start World War III just to avoid the collapse of the banksters' New World Order dreams and save their sorry asses and yours from the wrath of the people, shall we? First, let's honor the level-headed Egyptians who stand up for their country, their rights, and shout to the world what's really going on with your Muslim Brotherhood invasion of Egypt. We don't buy the crap on mainstream media about how the people of Egypt love us, are grateful to us, and just can't wait to embrace your Marxist utopian nightmare future you have planned for them. The only reason we, the people, ever turn on a mainstream news channel or listen to one of your pathetic media patsies is so we can make sure we know what kind of crap du jour you have on the plate for this week, and we can be sure to do our homework on it. It's up to us to make sure the bobble-headed entitlement junkies at least get a shot at the truth from time to time. You know, it's a funny thing about the truth. No matter how long you try to ignore it, and no matter how many sneaky ways you people try to hide it, twist it, or rape it, it's always there, never goes away. And sooner or later, just like karma, it bites you in the ass. Poor old Bam Bam. The people are just not buying his BS anymore. It's pretty bad when Vladimir Putin can make an American president look like a petulant preschooler. Even his staunchest groupies, like MoveOn.org, are yelling at him. He shows up at the G20 and not only makes a complete fool of himself with his nonsensical claims of proof from Syria, but makes the American people look like rodeo clowns. Oh, we do apologize to the rodeo clowns of America. We know you're a cut way, way above our elected traitors in Washington. Point made, though. Then we have the three biggest propaganda prostitutes of the year, hawking their wares at town hall meetings and press conferences. No sooner do we, the people, find out about nuclear warheads being shipped from Deas Air Force Base in Texas, which they're not even supposed to have, to South Carolina, then the same day, dingbat Lindsey Graham announces that if we don't give Obama what he wants, the terrorists will make a nuclear strike on Charleston Harbor. Any ideas where they, the fictitious terrorists, might get those weapons? Then he tries to justify his outlandish statement with the excuse that if we don't attack Syria, Iran won't believe us when we threaten to attack them. Wow, we can't think of a single instance of a better example of empty-headed radical liberal logic. Who writes this stuff for him? This guy's starting to look and sound like Pee Wee Herman hosting the Oscars and awarding the prize for best script writing for a documentary aimed at morons. Moving on, we see Diane Dipstick Hitlerstein getting pummeled by her constituents at a town hall meeting, and all she can come up with is, "You'll just have to trust us. We know better than you what to do." Are you serious, Dee Dee? Do you really think you're going to get away with that? Traitor of the Year, John McCain, gets the same treatment from his constituents, lies his ass off about the intention to use boots on the ground in Syria, gets called on the carpet for it, and then a Syrian woman dresses him down in very high fashion while he tries not to meet her eyes and dismisses her by looking the other way. How do we know you're all lying about the intentions in the Middle East? Well, of course, there's General Wesley Clark's interview in March of 2007, where he shared the outline for the planned Middle East wars and takeover to include Syria. There's always that. But better yet, how about tax cheat and crook Charlie Rangel pushing for reinstatement of the draft to include our young women to sacrifice their lives for your filthy agenda? Do you actually think America is going to send our children, young mothers and fathers, to be your cannon fodder for the filthy bankers, the CIA drug trade, and your own individual criminal actions? Really? How dare you declare patriotic Americans to be right-wing radical domestic terrorists with one breath, and then even think about convincing our kids that giving their lives for your corruption, greed, and lust for power is patriotic? Even your handlers have lost their minds this time. You better know, Congress, it's not going to happen. Well, there is one way it could happen. We the people will consider backing and fighting your wars with but one non-negotiable string attached. That being that before a single one of our sons and daughters put on a uniform, pick up a gun, and ship out, you, each and every one of you, march your butts off to boot camp. Then you go do a tour of duty in the Middle East, taking with you every member of your immediate family. When you get back, if you get back, we'll join the fight. Take it or leave it, Congress. We aren't fighting your phony wars anymore or lining your pockets with the profits from our deaths. And no, we aren't going to help your bosses eliminate 2/3 of the human population of the earth. We'd be more likely, far more likely at this point, to mount your heads atop the Georgia Guidestones than to allow you to carry out a single objective carved into them. So, we've been assaulted by the propaganda prostitutes all week. And to put the icing on the cake, the horror parade begins, starring that illustrious thespian troupe, the Washington War Whores. It starts with Saudi Arabia and Qatar bribing U.S. congressmen to vote for war on Syria. John Fork-Tongue Kerry says, oh yeah, they're willing to pay for the whole thing. An all-out war, once and for all. Oh, but that's not on the table right now. Oh yeah? Well, gee, did somebody tell Hillary Clinton that? Apparently not. Or did she think she's so sexy the Saudis mistook her for one of the 72 virgins and just couldn't resist draping her voluptuous body with $500,000 worth of jewelry? She may be the queen of the Washington War Whores, but at least she's not a cheap whore. You should all take a lesson from the Clinton crime camp. If you're going to sell your soul and your country, risking your hide for a buck, you really ought to do it big. Your neck will stretch just as far on the rope for a little treason as it will for a big one. Don't worry. We the people believe in fair trials first, of course. Today we find out that the Abomination Administration is planning to air a series of disgusting television ads in their attempt to appeal to the hearts and minds of we the people to support their planned genocide in Syria. Too bad for the White House porn pushers that we already know about the fake videos and crisis actors used to produce these offensive, graphic pity blasts. We know, too, who kidnapped and killed those children you'll be exploiting. As it was stated in an article today, it's time to look, one at a time, at each of the most prominent of the terrorists in Syria working for the terror-promoting regimes of the UK and the United States. Who is Nadim Balouch, the one so prominently featured in videos threatening gas attacks against the Syrian people? He is none other than an operative for the UK's Cameron government, along with the Obama White House. This individual saying he is in possession of deadly nerve gas agents, which he will willingly fire on civilians, including women and children, is no stranger to the grand scam of gas attack hoax. He, in fact, is the same terrorist seen on the so-called opposition source video showing gas attack victims. Through his vile spewing he is attempting to spread fear among the Syrian population and attempt to defeat them with mere propaganda and lies. Well, so much for that plan. Are you starting to understand how badly this is going to turn out for you if you defy and betray the will of the people? Do you think we don't know what is in Obama's report on nuclear employment strategy of the United States from June 21st, 2013? Right now, we are so disgusted, we could cheerfully sell tickets to your hangings. But fortunately for you, we the people are not scum bucket thieving criminals like you and your fellow cronies in the hall of government and your greedy corporate-sponsored donors, not to mention the impotent old men you answer to. So instead, we'll just embark on a good old-fashioned spring cleaning come 2014 elections. And this time, we'll make damn sure the votes are counted correctly and the polls are kept clean of riffraff like the racist patrol, Black Panthers, Acorn Unions, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Southern Poverty Law Center, and any other group you can come up with to intimidate the people. It's just too bad that many of you are not up for re-election this time. But maybe, just maybe, we the people can think up some very creative ways to oust your butts too. Our advice? Well, there's always the honorable way out. Admit your crimes, resign, and beg our forgiveness, which would be your best chance, but that's never going to happen, is it? You still think your ticket to the bunker is going to be stamped. You're in for a surprise there too, boys and girls. So since you're not about to come clean, give back your ill-gotten gains at the expense of the people, you'd better start giving some thought to where in the world you can be granted asylum, taking nothing with you but your birthday suit. Shouldn't be a problem for many of you since you spend most of your time with your pants down anyway. In any case, the Syria show is over, and the box office is bust. We aren't purchasing the tickets. You go. We won't stop you. Enjoy the show. We hear the sound effects are to die for. We are the answer.